Somos Bonita Radio. Síguenos en youtube.tv diagonal channel diagonal Bonita Radio, en bonitaradio.net, facebook.com diagonal Bonita Radio y en Twitter bonita-radio. En línea con el mundo.
Las expresiones vertidas en el siguiente programa no representan necesariamente la opinión de Bonita Radio. Las opiniones son exclusivas de sus autores.
Para bailar la bomba buena, tú lo tienes que sentir. Yo te invito a bailarla ahora, no te venga a cohibir.
Para bailar la bomba buena, tú lo tienes que sentir. Yo te invito a bailarla ahora, no te venga a cohibir.
Ay, no te venga a cohibir, no te venga a cohibir. Este bomba de la buena, no te venga a cohibir.
Para bailar la bomba buena, tú lo tienes que sentir.
¿Cómo?
Yo te invito a bailarla ahora, no te venga a cohibir.
Ay, cuando pisaste el suelo, el campo se convirtió. Y con tus zapatos pintaste el color de esta canción.
Para bailar la bomba buena, tú lo tienes que sentir.
¿Cómo es?
Yo te invito a bailarla ahora, no te venga a cohibir.
Ahí en metáfora yo hablaba, mientras bomba tú bailabas, y con tu ojo moldeaste la figura de mi voz.
Para bailar la bomba buena, tú lo tienes que sentir. Yo te invito a bailarla ahora, no te venga a cohibir.
No te venga a cohibir, no te venga a cohibir. Este bomba de la buena, no te venga a cohibir.
Para bailar la bomba buena, tú lo tienes que sentir.
Estamos en una nueva edición del programa Re-Picando, que se transmite de ahora en adelante todos los sábados de 2 a 3 de la tarde a través de Bonita Radio. Y recuerde que somos Bonita Radio en Puerto Rico
Y en el mundo,
y que usted nos puede seguir a través de...
bonitaradio.net o en facebook.com/Bonita Radio.
Ahora los vamos a dejar con un invitado, así que es bien importante que ustedes aprovechen esta entrevista al máximo, busquen un lápiz y un papel porque tiene mucho que contar y nos referimos nada más y nada menos que a...
Colonel Wallace Sterling, desde Jamaica.
Así que no se lo pueden perder. Bueno, y los dejamos con Ángel y con la entrevista.
Ok, estamos aquí con una persona muy, muy especial para la noche de hoy. Lo tenemos desde Jamaica, que nosotros cariñosamente le llamamos Colonel Wallace Sterling. Él se va a presentar ahora. Ok, Colonel. We would like to have your full name, more or less, where you from, and...
Hi, my name is Wallace Sterling, and I'm the colonel of the Moortown Maroons, and that is a place located in Jamaica. It is located in the parish of Portland on the northeast side of Jamaica in the Blue Mountain. Specifically, we are 16 kilometers or 10 miles to the south of the parish capital, Port Antonio. And that is where our foreparent has been living for the last more or less 275 years. As the colonel, I am the chief, the person in charge of the community, and I operate with a council that should not consist more than 32 persons, but not necessarily have to have the 32 persons at any given time. So it will be 32 plus the colonel, which is myself, that would make the council to 33. But suffice to say, we can operate with less than that. Council members are taken from a different district that makes up the Maroon community of Moortown. Moortown is a part of the Windward Maroons because all the Maroons that live on the eastern end of the highland, they are referred to as the Windward Maroon, and that include the community of Moortown, the community of Charlestown in the same parish of Portland, and in the adjoining parish is a community by the name of Scotsall, and that's where the Maroon come from. Now, to be a colonel in the Moortown community in particular, You can either be appointed or you can be elected. Any one of them will work. If you are appointed, then you are appointed for an indefinite period of time. And the same thing if you are elected, it is for an indefinite period of time. There is no set limit as to how long you should or should not be the colonel. It is between you and the people to determine if you work satisfactorily, then you can be there for the rest of your life. If you don't, then they might ask you to leave. In my situation, I've been colonel since 1995. So this year is going to make me 19 years since I have been a colonel. And to date, I have been the youngest person to sit in that office of colonel, and especially for such a long time. Not to say that the person that I succeed, this is my predecessor, he has been colonel for 31 years until he finally retired because of ill health. So our foreparents, as we are commonly referred to as Maroon, but I must say that our foreparents refer to themselves as Yankunkuno. This is an Akan word because what it means, in rough terms, it means a free and independent people. People who are self-reliant, people who will look out for themselves, work together as a commune to protect their own interests. Our foreparents, by and large, came from Africa. There was intermarriage with them and the original persons who used to live in Jamaica, the Amerindians, whom we refer to as Tainos. So it is fair to say that today, many of the Maroon descendants have indigenous Amerindian blood in them. I would want to say that one of the things that we use the word commonly Maroon to describe our foreparents, but to begin with, it was a derogatory way to describe the slaves who left the plantation and did not return. The struggle of our foreparents would have started with the Spaniards, who were the first colonizer of the country, the island Jamaica. The Spaniards started settling in Jamaica around the year 1506, or somewhere thereabout. And they occupied the country in more or less a loose way for many times they didn't have an effective government or a governor as such. And the Spaniards did not pay much attention to the significance of Jamaica because it didn't have any gold. But they used it as a sort of way station, because the original name of Jamaica, as given by the Amerindians, the Tainos that were living there, is Exkama, and it actually means the land of wood and water. Now, so they would use Jamaica as a sort of way station to collect, their wood, their water, meat, cowhide, and other crops that were grown there, to replenish their stock going into South and Central America. And on their way back, they will do the same before they take the long journey back to Europe, or they head off to Cuba or Hispaniola. Now, it is important to note that the history of our foreparents did not necessarily start the day that they came off the ships on the shores of Jamaica. They had a history which stretches back to thousands of years from the time that they were living in Africa. And for Amerindian ancestors, they too have an history that goes back to thousands of years before Columbus came to the shores of Jamaica, or the shores of the so-called New World. Our foreparents started their resistance against the Spaniard colonizer. They would leave the plantation, set up their own settlement in the interior of the island, have their own rules, their own leaders. They would hunt animals like wild pig, which was pigs that the Spaniards had brought over as domestic animals, but they became wild after a while in the rich, fertile, virgin land, as it were. There were wild goats and there were wild cattle that they would hunt as well. Now, they would do their own cultivation. They would plant their own crops as well. And the Spaniard did not have enough manpower to send people out to hunt them down from time to time. So they were basically left alone to fend for themselves and to live a relatively peaceful life in these communes that they have set up. But when the British invaded Jamaica in 1655, because they had invaded the country before, but it was much more than like, I'm looting and I'm moving on. But when they came in 1655, they started, the intention of the English was to drive the Spaniard out of Jamaica, and they were successful. After they finally managed to drive out all the Spaniards in 1663. So there were like 8 years of struggle. But there was one Spaniard by the name of Yassi who had really rallied the forces, and some of our foreparents would fight alongside him, because those slaves that they had released from being slaves at the time of the invasion, some of them fight alongside the Spaniards to try to repel the British attack. But there was one group under the leadership of a man known as Wang de Wallace, from all this Maroon community. At the end of the day, he joined the British and fought against the Spaniards, and that really was the blow, the death blow for the Spanish resistance, because they by themselves could not defeat the British. Without the help and assistance of the Maroons, they would be at the mercy of the British. And the British knew that. So what the British tried to do is to get the Maroons on their side at all costs. But the other Maroon communities, which did not join with Wang de Wallace, after a while the British recruited him to go out and hunt those Maroons. And they ambushed him and killed him. So that was that. They live in Jamaica from time to time, raiding plantation, burning them, burning the great house, take away all what they could have laid their hands on, and eventually they were able to keep the British at bay. So they could not develop the country in the manner in which they want. So what they finally did by harassing the British decided that, at some point in time they had to sign a treaty with them, which they did. And this treaty was signed in 1739. And with the Windward Maroons was on the 23rd of June, the Leeward Maroons was on the 1st of March of that same year, 1739. It is important. Yeah, it is also important that. Okay.
Finish. Ok, bien, ahora seguimos con Colonel Wallace, terminando en esta brillante historia que nos está dejando saber. Ok, Colonel.
So our foreparents signed a treaty with the government in 1739. One can look at the treaty and the different clauses of the treaty. It has about 13 main clauses. And it speaks to the fact that hostility would have ceased between the Maroons and the British. And as a result of that, our foreparents would be given land where they could live undisturbed by the British. They would be responsible for their own justice system, meaning that the agreement gave them, make the Maroon community an autonomous community within Jamaica. There are some clauses in the treaty that people find to be controversial, even to this day. And one of the main clause was the fact that the Maroons should return any slave henceforth that leave the plantation and come to reside with the Maroon, or the Maroon should help in suppressing any further uprising in the colony, and also that the Maroon should assist the government in case there was an invasion from outside the country. Now, one can look at these clauses and say that they were not just fair or equitable for the other slaves on the plantation, but everything has to be taken into context as to why these treaties were signed, what was taking place in and around the Maroon community at that point in time when they signed the treaty. One thing one can say for sure is that what the Maroons negotiated with the British in the bush when the British came to them to have the treaty signed or to seek peace is not what was written on the treaty. Our foreparents were illiterate as far as English, reading and writing English was concerned. They were not able to do so. They did not think in the way that the British think to say, well, if we do something, then we are going to go back down the road and change it. They signed a treaty, what was known as a blood treaty, meaning that each party to the agreement would cut their finger, the blood they would collect in a calabash, a small gourd, they would mix it with rum and hurt, and each party would drink that. And that is a typical, what you call an Ashanti swear oath, because a lot of our people are from the Ashanti tribe, the Akan, the Ashanti and the Fanti. Now, the British made the terms in such a way that it was more leaning towards them, favored their thing, because the first clause in the treaty, they said that the Maroon sue for peace. And the Maroon did not sue for any peace. They never go out and ask for peace. It was the other way around. It was the British who came to them and seeking peace, because they recognized that as long as the Maroons were out there fighting, then they could not get people to live in certain part of the island, and they would not be able to exist peacefully and carry out their cultivation of sugar cane and other crops. But anyway, be that as it may, what it does, it gave the Maroon some breathing space to develop their own communities, settle down, have children in a family unit. And so then the structure of the community is that there is a colonel, and then there are like majors, captains, foreman, secretary, and treasurer of the council. These people form the officers' corps, and there were other members taken from the various different districts, because our enclave where the Maroons live. The amount of persons from each outside district is depending on the amount of people that live in that particular district. So there was a quota. Now, one was expected to obey the rules, and people obeyed the rules. The colonel was always seen not as a dictator, but as a person that you give respect to. So his orders would follow. You could follow them easily. But one of the things that the treaty did not allow the Maroons to do was to grow sugarcane, which was the major exporting crop in Jamaica. Because if you grow sugarcane, it means that you will be able to produce sugar. And you produce sugar, you can export sugar. And you export sugar, you will amass wealth. Anything that the Maroon grow, any crop, they would have to sell them in the marketplace, the local marketplace. Or they would have to, in turn, if they go outside of the community, to hire out themselves for wages. I want to say that there are times when there was uprising in Jamaica. For example, the Taki Rebellion. Taki was a Cromanti slave on a plantation in St. Mary. And he organizes the slave in several other plantations, and they have an uprising. The Maroons were calling to help to quell this uprising with Taki. It was decided that they would be compensated for each person that they killed. So if you kill somebody out in the bush, you didn't have to bring the body in, but you need to cut off the hair of any one of the hair of the person, bring it in, and that will say that, you know, you kill. What the Maroons did though, they basically did not kill anybody. The slave that the soldier killed, because the soldier weren't necessarily rewarded for killing anybody, they would cut off the ears of those slaves, the dead bodies, and bring them in to collect that reward. The British realized that after a while, this is what the Maroons were doing. When they were in contact with Taki and his soldier, and the fighting broke out, the Maroons would lie on the ground. Taki and his men would be firing volleys over their heads. The British would be up fighting, and the Maroons. Then the British come to the conclusion that the Maroons were worthless and good for nothing, because they were not fighting, and they were not killing anybody, but yet they were collecting. But the fact of the matter is, the Maroon never had a quarrel with Taki, because Taki was basically another African. He was a Comanche. A lot of the Maroons were Comanche too, so why fighting? But because the treaty states that they should be there, then they present themselves. But they present themselves in a negative way. The question of other slaves leaving the plantation and coming in contact with the Maroons is something that the Maroons themselves would have left the plantation and go and bring the slaves to their community, because a man could go to the plantation and get a woman. The other way, it didn't work the other way around. A woman could not go to the plantation and take a man and bring him back into the community. That was not allowed. If the man comes, it has to come under the guidance of some other male, but not under the guidance of a woman. As a matter of fact, in early Maroon communities, the women were not necessarily allowed to go out and marry to an outsider. One might look at it and say, this is, male domination. But the fact of the matter is, you have to protect the community, and you did not want too many outsiders that you could not account for to come into the community and destabilize the smooth running of the community. And that is the reason why those kind of customs and practice were upheld. Now, today, as a reason for us being there and practicing our own, we got along sometimes very well with others from outside of the community, and sometimes it did not. The British on their part try all the time to abrogate the treaties that were signed, and I try to do it unilaterally. It's just that our foreparents were very genuine in what they were doing, and they did not necessarily listen to the British. So when the British tried to break the treaty, they would continue to go ahead and ignore them. What happened during the fighting? There were many things that our foreparents used to combat the British. And even when they settled down in peacetime, they still apply some of those things, because it is that kept them going. And they know that as long as they live together as a people, every man was looking out for his neighbor. I am watching your back, you are watching my back. We work in unity, and that way it would be good for the entire community. But one of the most important things that I wanted to take into consideration during the struggle, and even after the struggle of the Maroon in their various community, two instruments really stood out: the abeng and the drums. Because these two instruments play a very important role in the fight against the colonial power, and in later life to maintain and sustain the identity of the Maroons in Jamaica.
Ok, ya con esto vamos a ir entrando entonces dentro de la comunidad de los Maroons, y vamos a ir viendo cómo estos instrumentos jugaron una parte muy bien importante. Ok, ahora vamos a entrar, como dijimos, sobre la vida de la comunidad y la música dentro de esta comunidad. Okay. Muy bien, bien interesante. Ahora vamos a entrar dentro de la comunidad para dialogar sobre la música y el juego que esto lleva dentro de la comunidad de en Morristown. Seguimos.
Well, our foreparents fighting the British in the mountain, one of their main means of communicating with each other was the use of the abeng. The abeng is a cow's horn that is blown from a hole in the side near to the tip of the horn. So you would cut the tip off, bore a hole through that solid part, and then you bore another hole on the side. What you blow in the horn is notes. And it's different notes that says different things. A skilled abeng blower, a keen listener. There are notes that would call individuals. There are notes that would call the entire community. There are notes that would tell the community to retreat because the soldiers were coming. And there are various things that you can say on the abeng. So when you look at it, for us, an abeng was like a cellular phone today. It's kind of forerunner to the modern day cellular phone. We use it in the bush. The drums were also used to send messages. The songs that our foreparents sing were songs that speak about their exploit in the battlefield, songs that deal with social commentary, songs that were basically warning to the community. And all of those songs, they're referred to as chromanti songs. Now, the word chromanti, it is spelled in various ways. If it is Anglicized, it starts with a C, but in its own African derivative, it is spelled with a K. So some people will spell it K-H-R-O-M-A-N-T-I, some spell it K-R-O-M-A-N-T-I without the H. Well, be that as it may, that is not the important issue. The issue is that the songs are chromantic songs, and the dance and the singing that goes with it is a chromantic play. The language that our foreparents spoke, which is really a mixture of a different African language that comes from the people that makes up the Maroon community, is the chromantic language. Now, within the chromantic songs themselves, there are different forms of song, different kind of songs, but they are referred to as chromantic songs. Some of these songs are songs that reflect the composition of the Maroon community, like Mandingos represent the Mandingo people. And then there was like song like Salion, which deal with the people from Sierra Leone. At a chromantic play or gathering where songs will be played, you will start by playing something like a commoner, a song that is known as a commoner. A commoner is a song that just about anybody can sing under any circumstances. Doesn't have much spiritualism to it. Then you have jawbone, and like I said, you have Mandingo, you have Prapra, Salion, you have Mogala, and then you have country. A country song now is a very serious spiritual song. And it's a song, each song that is sung in that jargon, this country, it is a song for a specific ancestor that would have passed on before. So the song that goes for one grandpa is a different song that goes for another grandpa. So it doesn't matter, because when you sing one country song or play one country, and the drum styling of the drum is different also. The country styling of the drum is similar to that of the Prapra. And this is the style that you would play with one hand and you use a stick in the other. Now, the other songs like Jawbones are like songs that you talk about things that happen and you are warning people. So you basically can be sitting at your drum playing your song and your enemies do not understand that you are saying something about them and sending a warning to the people around you. The drums that we use today are the same drums that our foreparents would have used, and they are made in the very same way. The style has not changed, the style of playing has not changed, we have not improved on it one way or the other. We still make drums from hollow tree trunks, or if not more than it, you can cut a solid trunk and hew it out and then you make it. The head is made from goat skin. The cards that you use on the drum are cards that you make from the bark of three, especially, well, there are basically two trees that we get the bark from. The maho tree and the trumpet tree. The bark from the trumpet tree is of a little better quality than that of the maho. But suffice to say, we could use any one of them. And making the drums, you need the goat skin, the cylinder, which is the wood, and 3 pieces of cord of different size. One that you use to tie the skin to the drum. The other one that you use to lace the skin onto the piece that you tie there and to the next piece of cord which you put around, which is the band string. And then the lacing string is the smallest one and the band string is the biggest one. And you make it in such a way that you leave loops in between at interval, like you need to put the wooden pegs into it, the wedge as we call them. And a drum, you can make a drum in one day. If you have the head prepared, the cylinder prepared. But you would have to come back the next day again, or a day after, loose the thing over again, tighten it, and then you get it to play. Because just one day like that, you can't get it tight the way it had to be. So that's how it is. Now, please, when you have a chroman to play with these drums, you really have to look at if a member of a community is sick and you want to heal that person, to make the person better, then you would have to have a chroman to play. And the place where you call upon the spirit of your ancestors to manifest themselves and to tell you how is it or what you can do to make the person better. Or if there's a question that you want to ask of the ancestors, something about the community that nobody at present knew, but it is important that you get the answer, then you can always call upon the ancestors and do what you have to do, and they will provide you with the knowledge of past things and even events that are yet to come. So when you look at everything, the drum play a very important part in the life of the community. The songs that we sing is basically about the history of the community. So even though you will hear people singing the song, the various maroon songs, every song has its meaning and it tells a story. So if I look at one that says, that speak to our foremost leader, Granny Nanny, and I will sing a song like said, Granny Nanny komo Yahweh Yanemi, Granny Nanny komo Yahweh Yanemi. You bring boy, you bring girl, Yahweh Yanemi. Granny Nanny komo Yahweh Yanemi. You been a Tony River, Yahweh Yanemi. You been a Anabo, Yahweh Yanemi. What he's saying is that here is Granny Nanny. We are saying that she came from Stony River. And Stony River is a place that I used to live in the Blue Mountain, that the British call Nanny Town. Anabo is a place in Africa where she originally, where a lot of the people come from. So that is what the song is saying. And the other side is saying, she bring boy, she bring girl. It means that she's responsible for the boys and the girls. Everybody in the community, she's responsible for them. So if she's coming, all of these people would have to come with her. And that's what that song is saying. That is a piece of, country song or, or pop rap. The other song like For example, like a warning song, like we say, for example, if I sing a song like say, Simon Valley North, so place, more town and Jumbe Hood. Simon Valley North, so place, more town and Jumbe Gully. Simon Valley North, so place, more town and Jumbe Gully. So if you might know you walk, don't you? What this song is saying, okay, fine. So there was an issue between the Seaman Valley land and by outsiders who want to take it away from the Maroons. The Maroons were just simply saying, look, no matter what you do, we in Moortown, we are spirit, you cannot beat us. So be careful of the Seaman Valley land. We will always protect it, and we're going to protect it with our life. And so that's the extent of the songs, the importance of them, how we use them, and how we understand and interpret them to be able today to can draw back on the past, look at the history and of our foreparents.
Muy bien, muy interesante. Seguiremos. Yeah. Ok, seguimos ahora con el crono haciéndole la pregunta, ¿cómo fue su primera experiencia con la música? ¿Cómo y por qué se enamoró de su música y folclore? ¿Y por qué aún sigue peleando por mantenerla aún a su edad aquí en Morristown?
What I would say about the music and experiencing the music for the first time. In our community, where I live, first of all, my father was for many years the secretary of the Maroon Council. The music was always around us. Every household, every family was expected to pass on what they knew about the Maroon to the children in the household. So it's the elders passing it on to the younger ones. So you would have time when you would go and you can sit and listen to them playing the drums, doing all the things that they have to do. And more so, growing up with my father where I would hear him singing the songs. He was not necessarily playing the drums at all the time, even though he was a drum player himself. So we will go out in the field and he would be working and singing these songs. Maybe we are at home and he will sing them according to how the occasion arises. So the music was not a strange thing to any of us. We didn't need any introduction per se to this music because it's always around you. The thing is that there are sometimes as a child when some form of the music is going to be played, especially when they are going to be having a play, what we call a play, that is like, as a serious situation. Sometimes as a child you were not allowed to be present because stuff like that are really heavy stuff. But as you grow older, then you will be able to participate in that. But sometimes, elders will just sit down and just play the drum for fun, because it's a social, like I said, the social part of it. So we didn't really have a problem with that. Now, as you grow, you look back and older persons who were playing the drums would have passed on, and others who were dancing and so would have passed on, and then there are younger persons who come in to pull the breach. Because if you do not have the young people involved, then after all, you're dealing with a culture that will eventually die. Because if the practitioners, the cultural bearer, they die and they don't pass it on to the younger generation, then it will die with them. We consider the music so important that when the United Nations started the whole thing, well, UNESCO, let me put it that way, of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity. And they were looking at specific cultures, as it said, but things that are oral and intangible. We make sure, through the government of Jamaica, because since it's the UNESCO, it has to be from government to government. So it was through the government of Jamaica. And of all the other cultures in Jamaica, we decided that the music of the Moortown Maroon should be entered. And we did that in 2001. And this is a process, it takes a long time. By 2003, we were declared, the music of the Moortown Maroon was declared as a masterpiece by UNESCO. So we have that accolade today. And our part in the community, we are endeavored to transmit this to the young people, teach them how to make the drums, how to make the abeng, how to blow the abeng, and how to play the drums. I might probably make it sound a little bit simple, or I might simplify it. The truth of the matter is, the drums are not, the type of rhythm that I play on the drum are not necessarily the easiest type of rhythm. Because you have to be able to change from one rhythm to another, different style. Because sometimes it's not always the person, the drummer, that is controlling the music. Anybody who is dancing can raise a song that they want to raise at any time. So you might be playing a piece of proper now, and the person change it. After the person change, and you go for a drop bonus, a different drum style. And since there are two drums that we use, which I should have pointed out before, there are two drums that we use. Basically, you can use more than two drums at any given time, but basically you will use two drums. The male drum or the female drum. So it's the male drum that play the bass and the female that play the treble. Or we call them the rolling drum, which is the bass, or the cutting drum, which is the treble. Or you might refer to them as your iron. That is the two main instruments that you use. But we also use what you call shakers. And we also use a triangular piece of iron with a next piece that we call awadua. You use that. And we also, if needs be, we use a piece of bamboo or two pieces of stick, split a piece of bamboo, like you clap them together just like that to keep the timing, like you're just kind of beating on the table. So all of these things are instruments that you would use when you are playing the chromantic. So even though like I said before, I kind of simplify it, but it does take some doing to get it to where you want. And because one can become spirit possessed. So when you are playing, you always got to be careful and be mindful of that. Even though you can, as a dancer, prevent yourself from being spirit possessed. But if it is a situation where it's a serious thing, you're not just doing it for enjoyment, right? You're doing it because somebody is sick and you want to cure that person, then you don't do anything to prevent yourself from being spirit possessed. Because it is when you are spirit possessed, then that's the time you are able to deal with the person that is sick, to know what is it that you have to do to heal that person. So, but one of the other things is, most of the time, these playing will take place at night. But when it is a serious playing, like when it's a play, you have to make sure that when it comes to midnight, all the persons that are there, you will tell them if they don't want to remain, they should leave. But if they decide to stay beyond midnight, they cannot leave until the play is over. Whether it goes into the next morning or the next evening, you cannot leave. Because anything befall you when you leave, you are basically on your own. You cannot fault anybody for it. Because you would have been told before, if you want to leave, you leave. And if you decide to stay, then you stay. So these are like, deep things in terms of how we play the drum, what we do, and all the things that will help us. Because the music is really what is used to identify us. You won't go into any other community in Jamaica outside of the Maroon communities and to see them playing on the drums that we use. Neither will you hear them singing the songs that we are singing. So the closest you will get to any drum playing other than to the Maroon community would be like the Kumina. There are times when the Maroons will sing a song and the Kumina players will probably sing a song kind of similar. But one of the things that you won't get is in a maroon Cromanti play, you won't get anybody playing any Crumina. Now you won't get them playing any other style of drum. The very same persons who play the Cromanti drum is more than likely can play the Crumina drum because it is easier to play because the rhythms are less than what in the Cromanti. But when we are playing Cromanti, we are playing Cromanti. We're not playing Crumina. Because that's another different kind of thing. And the same persons in time gone by, we do other form of music, other form, but Cromanti playing was always set apart. The other things like Jan Kanu, because the same practitioner will do it, you know, but they won't mix the two of them. And I can remember an incident that happened when we were in Suriname, in that Maroon community, during Caribbean Fest. There was a masquerade group that went to visit the community. That I think it was from Barbados, or one of these other islands. And they were singing. And you know what happened? The chief came out, not the chief, the spokesperson my chief and said, no, they don't want it here. Because this is Maroon thing. And I said to myself, my God, I am in Jamaica. That's the very same thing that would have happened in our community. When it is Cromanti time, it's Cromanti time. When it's masquerade time, it's masquerade time. You don't mix both things. So what we got to do, all we have to do, is to continue to work the way we are working to ensure that the music live on in the young generation. That is what is important for us.
Ok. Con eso quedamos, les damos las gracias. Y gracias a Colonel Wallace, que está aquí, a Sharon Cronin, que está compartiendo aquí con nosotros, y estudiante de la Universidad de Goddard, donde estamos en estos momentos.
Yo me dice gracias también. Y Medasi appoint. Thank you. Gracias.
Muy bien, gracias, Wallace.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Ay, cuando bailo puedo verle mi forma de bailar. El orgullo que yo siento por mi bomba está brutal.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Ay, café, bendíceme sabiduría para llevar tu legado como tú quisiste en vida.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Cada día más, cada día más. Ay, orgulloso yo me siento cada día más.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Ay, caridad, cólmame de tu bendición para llegar a los niños con tu tacto y con tu amor.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Ay, cuando bailo yo me transporto a esos tiempos cuando el sentimiento era lo que hablaba por el cuerpo.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Ay, cada día más, ay, cada día más. Ay, orgulloso yo me siento cada día más.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Con elegancia yo me paseo en el bate, bailando la bomba buena como siempre, como es.
Orgulloso yo me siento de mi música y cultura cada día más.
Ay, cierro yo los
Somos Bonita Radio. Síguenos en youtube.tv diagonal channel diagonal Bonita Radio, en bonitaradio.net, facebook.com diagonal Bonita Radio y en Twitter, bonita-radio.